Episode 294. He went from making bird noises to making big brain calls on the desk. Jake is here, everybody. Welcome, Jake, to the show.
Hi, guys. Happy to be here. Excited to get into it.
Yeah, we're here. We're going to start talking about some games. Week 1 of the 2023 season is in the books. Yiska, any initial takeaways?
I guess I should apologize for everyone whose pick and points I stole, especially with the Soul Infernal point takes. That was a little rough, but I mean, I can only, forward what I get to hear. I also think it was pretty obvious that they tossed it with both hands, and in most parallel universes, that take was actually probably correct. But yeah, other than that, had a lot of fun with the first week, I would say.
Yeah, super exciting to see, some of the first looks. Poor went out for Vegas. They got kind of a little bullied by the amount of Life Weaver ran into them. A little bit of a grief. It's kind of interesting to see. I know. I think you and Gunba had a kind of an interesting back and forth. I think in that post match with Mayhem and Vegas.
Yeah.
It was kind of interesting to hear that we're just trying it out. It's kind of interesting. Was it kind of, you seemed a little bit more positive than I think most people tend to be. Is that fair to say?
I think they're trolling. I mean, it's pretty obvious.
yeah. That's pretty clear. But
I wouldn't call that trying it out. I think it's completely non-viable. It's just that people correctly realize that their teams are so much stronger than Vegas. Right. They can literally do whatever they want. I mean, just play fucking ball on Sigma maps. Who cares? You probably win. Mm-hmm. So I mean, I think that team is there's an extra tier in NA on the bottom with one team in it.
You only think one
team? It's not it's really bad.
Look,
I think that's the only team in that tier. I think that team will get stomped by Valiant in New York or right. I actually think they'll get 3-0'd by Valiant or New York. That would be my prediction.
Yeah, I think
so that's a big deal, right? Because those are, in my opinion, those are kind of the other teams near the bottom.
Yeah,
I think I don't know. I just can't. I just think that team has no. There's no one it has a potential to beat, in my view. I think they're going to go winless. Actually, unfortunately,
it's looking like it. You definitely need a big improvement, because now it's getting to the point where it's I don't know if you're meeting mechanics checks. This isn't a Pratt thing. This is I don't know if you can play here.
Well, I just feel bad because there's probably I don't really know what the problem is on the team, or
sure.
which players are at issue, or where they could have done better in their scouting process. But I do know that you had this roster was very unsuccessful last season, and every year the teams get stronger. Every season, every team gets stronger because they can they make good roster decisions. They replace some players, or they add in new players so they could specialize better. To make no changes is to make the bet that there's despite all there's a year of change, right, in between the roster selection, and you think there's not a single contenders player that you could sign that is more exciting prospect than the existing players you have. There's not a single player who got cut from their team or who didn't have a team, a veteran player who you thought you could get over. I mean, really not one. I mean, I just find that hard to believe considering teams like the Valiant. I think they came together with I doubt they have that much more resources than Vegas, and yet I think they're a much stronger team. I think they have a chance to beat the medium or just below half tier. I think I wouldn't be even when I was in was Valiant versus Vancouver, right? Valiant took a map, right? I think or maybe they didn't, and it was they almost took a map or something like that, or they won a round of Koth or something like that, right? So I just think there's some sign of hope for that team, and I just feel completely hopeless for Vegas. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm over calling it, but to get stomped by Life Weaver, I guess Mayhem's a pretty strong team, so it's kind of understandable. But
okay,
yeah, yikes.
Now I gotta ask, because you have the first-hand experience. Comparatively, do you think this team feels weaker than the Shanghai Dragons of Season 1?
I don't know. That comparison is hard to make because it was a different era. I think at that time, I don't know. Like this, like pound for pound, they're just obviously a way better. Like they would stomp that Shanghai Dragons, but so would like every team in the league would stomp every team in the league. Like every team now would destroy every team from before because even if it's the same players, like I am much better at the game now than when I was a professional player in like season 1 and season 2. But like everyone is better because the game has been out for many years, So like it's really there's a constant pace of improvement, and which is I think true in basically every esport, and people are like always learning and understanding the game better and better. So, I don't know if it's fair to take a look back and like or make a relative like Shanghai Dragons relative to the game they played in versus this team relative to the league they're in now. I don't know. I think it's just like a little bit of a fraught comparison. I mean, if they go winless, then I think that's a pretty strong statement. I think it's possible they'll go winless.
Yeah, I think that's the basic question here. Like the probability of them ever taking a match, is it higher? Was it higher for the Shanghai Dragons back then? Because they got pretty close.
The OG Shanghai Dragons like Roshan and Undead and stuff. That was worse. I mean, those players were like, it was fun playing against them. It was rough. Like it was really rough playing against them. I mean, in the sense of like, you don't have to try hard, like that's crazy in a pro match. Like it's like when you get a ranked game and I'm like, oh, it's me and 4 owl players versus a Symmetra one trick and a Mercy one trick. Like I actually played that game recently. It was like I had like Lip and who else was on DPS? Some pro player, I can't remember. Lip and someone and then my supports were like Finn and
oh jeez.
I don't know. It was basically 4 like pretty high tier Al pros on their main roles, and I was on tank. And the enemy team has a Sim and a Mercy, and Lip is just eating them up on Dorado. It's like
lean back,
all right,
knuckles.
Like, play Diva, just care Lip, care Lip with Diva, and we just auto win.
Yeah,
it's gotta be a nice little relaxing, bye week, for some of these teams, and obviously some of the ranks.
The scary thing is though, it'll get worse and worse because as they go like more and more winless, like the mental boom is like inevitable. I mean, I can't imagine being a competitive player who wants to play competitively, and for a while, like whatever, the first few matches, like all right, whatever, we took some L's, but like whatever, like keep grinding, and then it's like I don't know how many matches are in this season, but you're like 0-12 or something, and there's like a few more matches, and it's just like, dude, like what the fuck are we doing? That is a you practice. Even those players, I'm sure, are practicing hard and like working really hard to like be their best. I just feel bad because it's like you need to improve year over year as a team, and that almost always means some adjustment to the roster. Ideally, you're like adding players, but inevitably, I think you're also cutting players. I think that's just like part of what it is that we do, and then that's like the way it has to be because for the players on the team who stay on the team, it's like I don't know, if you don't make any changes, I just feel it can be okay, like theoretically, that's not like necessarily wrong, but typically on like the minimum investment teams, I feel like they should have like higher turnover because the odds of like taking a risk on a new prospect is a much better bet when you're like don't have much to work with. Like take risks, try new things. Like I don't know, I just feel like for a top team keeping a lot of their players, I'm like, okay, it's more understandable. Like you had a great result, everything was great. Your players are strong and compete at the highest level. Even those teams probably still try to improve and like get better at the margins, And so to be a bottom team that doesn't do that is pretty shocking to me.
Yeah, there are some success stories. I think the Guangzhou Charge of this year seem to have, been a little bit more surprising than people maybe remember them ending the 2022 season with, coming out beating the Dallas Fuel in a pretty convincing fashion. Not making a ton of changes, having some success there, but it seems like they're more of the exception to the rule than anything else, because I agree.
No,
I think we've talked about this on the show, like every season.
Also, Dallas got like hard downgraded. People don't realize how hard the downgrade is on Dallas. I mean, they've got some good players, but like, I don't know. It's like, it's a Winston meta. Like, people think, oh, Hanmin did so good. Yeah, it's because Hanmin plays like his best heroes in off-tank metas, and like he's insane at those heroes. But he's like probably fine at Winston. But like, he's not fearless. You know what I mean? Like, there's a reason that duo was so terrifying because they covered each other so well. And you split them up, and you don't give Hanbin that backup, and you take away his like insanely good supports who are, by the way, Chio and Fielder, some of the best enablers for off tanks ever. In that they're like true supports. They like heal a lot and support their team a lot. They're not like I don't think of them as like individual carry players, I think of them as like, supports. But if you put those players with really strong team, look at the Atlanta Reign, that's super terrifying combo. But now I think, I don't know, like that style probably benefited Hanbin a lot. And now he's in a much tougher spot. I do think he's an amazing player. He's like a top tier player.
Sure, of course.
Don't get me wrong, but it's a team effort.
It's also, Joe, like you cannot really necessarily compare just like, oh, they stayed all the same. Like Guangzhou went 4-2, I think, in the last stage. Paris lost to Samido. Okay, that's the trajectory.
Trust and believe. I am not defending the fact that like this team made no changes. I'm just saying like for the YouTube Timmies in the chat that are like, oh, but the Charge did it, so everybody else should do it. No. There's a difference here. These are the exceptions. Every other team that has never made any moves in the offseason in the history of the Overwatch League, or maybe even prior, that's not a great confidence builder where it's like, boy, we were mid last season. We're coming in with another mid roster, even though everybody's better. Like, it's not
Joe,
a great look.
You know who also like implicitly believes this? You! Because you still count on the Vancouver Titans. Okay, fair enough that like Aspire and Sugar Free come in, but you still counted on that.
Those are some big changes, my guy.
Yeah, right. Okay.
I think Vancouver has done pretty well with their roster. Actually, I don't feel that bad about the changes. I like Sugar Free and Aspire a lot. I think that's like good players.
Okay, here's a hot take, Jake. I've got Vancouver ending the season in 7th.
That is a very hot take. I don't know if I have that level of heat on the take, but I think they'll be like an exciting team to watch. Like I could see them making some upsets in a good meta for them. I don't think this is a great meta for them, but I think they're doing respectably. Yeah, I could see them. I think they'll be like that. They'll be fighting in that mid table for sure.
That's the bet I'm making. But before we get too far into that, because I do want to kind of pick your brain there, I do have to give a special shout out to our patron producers. So episode 294 is brought to you by these wonderful people: Battle Crab, Refined Bean, Bronzebot Buhel, Picasso, Chris R34444, Kasha67, Lulshin, Porkchop Sammy, Rexane, Volamel, and Sugar High. And our YouTube members: I am DRW, Brother, Adam L, Sagi Fumi, Ice M Jello, Fire Element 6, AK, and Chris R. Now with the Titans, we have seen like a step away from Ramattra and maybe a step towards like a Junker Queen, maybe answer to this like Winston rushdown, very DPS centric kind of composition. Do you think that there's a realm where maybe Punk finds his footing with Junker Queen?
I think Punk could be a decent Junker Queen player, but I just don't think it's like a counter. It's a map specific hero. Like you can't play it everywhere. And also there's some like changes that really hurt Junker Queen in the matchup, which is like Brig getting a stun. You can't ult while Brig is ulting, It's like that's a huge deal. Like Junker Queen is like the easiest ult to cancel in the game. And Brig in general is very good against Junker Queen. Like you just boop her. It's like she hates that more than almost anything. And you can block the knife and stuff, but not that that's that big of a deal, honestly. I think Queen's like fine against Brig overall, but I just think in general, those comps, like they're on the maps that are good, they're really good, but like I don't think they're viable on like a single hybrid or escort map. I mean, it's like a Koth only strat as far as I'm concerned. Maybe on some push maps, push it can work. It's viable on the maps where you're like snowballing early advantages because it's really strong when there's no ults. Like no ults in the game, the first fight really really strong. Just Queen has like a fundamental counter to Winston, which is that. Not only you're a shotgun hero, so you're strong against Winston, but crucially the knife is like the fact that you've pushed into the Winston bubble, you're shooting him, you're axing him, and then you knife him and then he can't jump out, right? It's like that's a complete counter to like Winston's playstyle. But Winston has a hit scan gun now, so you can just kind of chill and like AFK them out, and that's one of the strongest things about Winston in Overwatch 2 and the Sombra Tracer comp is like how well it plays slowly. So the punishment of the Queen is like, we'll just cap the point while you're playing slow, or we'll push the push cart while you're playing slow. But ultimately, I just don't see it. I don't see it being flexible enough to work on enough maps to like take over. I see it as like it's a tech counter. It's like kind of a cheese. I think it'll in the end. I expect it to have a decent amount of playtime, but in the end, in terms of like best teams playing against each other, everyone's going to be like the best teams are going to be playing Winston because it is the comp that like can beat everything. The best teams are going to master the comp that beats everything and maybe cheese the maps that are like really good for cheesing.
I think the fact, like sometimes like metas feel hard forced by who's the best team, and then those guys just shove it in your face, and sometimes it's very clearly like a balance dependent push, and it feels like for Atlanta, who are probably the best team in the Overwatch League at the moment, they have plenty of incentive to not necessarily drag it to Winston, right? I think like if they are in the head-to-head against Houston, you probably want to play something else than Winston most of the time. So with that incentive, right? Like theoretically, like you just know Winston has to have like some balance going on where like if Atlanta could force anything else, they would probably do that as well, right?
I will say Atlanta probably plays more D.Va than any other team in the league.
Right.
Like I don't know, I don't actually know the stats, but I just intuitively feel that way. Like Hawk plays a ton of D.Va, and I even disagree with that pick a lot when they're playing it. I'm like, I don't think D.Va's right here. Like on some maps, I think it is really strong, and you can do like very annoying defensive plays where D.Va just stalls the cart forever and gets healed from a mile away by Ana, and like the positions are just favorable to that, and you just can't get them out of the. And D.Va has like dive priority on you. But honestly, I think that hero is just not as good as Winston most of the time. And then like on a lot of maps, I'm like, dude, if you just play Winston here, you could just be so much more punishing, like you're on defense, you're honest on the high ground. Why are you counter diving? Just fucking kill them, like who cares if your team dies? Like kill them and trade and you win. You're on defense. And so I just feel like, I don't know. Honestly, I think Atlanta is like over forcing the D.Va compared to like what's truly optimal. It's like a map dependent thing, a situational thing, but that's what I wanted to see from them. I think they did pull it out at one point in one of their matches where Hawk was like only on D.Va every time he played, and then he was like maybe Junkertown, he like went to Winston for like a third point or something, and I was like, okay, I wanted to see that from them. Like I wanted them to show me. I know Hawk can play Winston. I don't think he's he's a flexible player who can play Winston, but I want to make sure for them as a team that they're like ready to pull out that swap. I mean, maybe their read is that like it is stronger in the end, or on like more maps than I think it is. But I guess that's like a difference in opinion in terms of your read on the meta. And the Atlanta are such a strong team. I think they can easily trick themselves and like be winning with D.Va and like winning all their scrims and stuff. And yet it's still not the best hero. I think they could win playing not the best hero. So that can be like a danger of being a team like that. I just don't see. The problem with D.Va is the problem with there's three viable heroes, or not three viable heroes, like there's a lot of viable heroes, but there's three. The broken tanks in Overwatch 2 are the ones who build shield and play the game, right? But at the same time, it's Sigma, Ramattra, and Winston. Those are like the three broken heroes. The most just kind of like a newcomer to that. It's not clear since the shield's kind of weird, but the fact that you're effectively in two places at once when you can do that, and that's a very, very potent thing to do. As strong as D.Va can be, you have to decide what to do, and you can only do one thing. And that's like just fundamentally easier to play against than heroes who put their shield down and then push you, or shield for their Widow, and then they're just going in your backline without the shield, and the Widow's using the shield. That play style is really potent and really flexible.
Yeah, it was kind of something that kind of jumped out at me on, I think, one of Atlanta's matches. I think there was like a Blizzard World. It seemed like Hawk was just behind in just the tempo of the game, where he was just
they played D.Va on Blizzard World defense, and I was like, I hate this. I really hate this. Like, it's Blizzard World defense. It's a very hard map to walk up on, where your supports, like especially second point, your supports have like a very dangerous walk up. Like there's nowhere you're gonna go that's gonna like feel good on support. You're always gonna be scared. And they're playing D.Va on defense. I'm like, isn't this just a missed opportunity? Like you could just punish them so much harder, and like feels like New York brought them to overtime. I'm like, I don't think New York should be going overtime.
Not at all.
On a hybrid map with Atlanta. I don't think that should be happening, and I kind of feel it's a symptom of that pick.
There's too much, like you said, like the fact that these three heroes can be effectively in multiple places at once. Putting a shield here, moving there. Their range is a lot wider, or they have more reach than some of these other picks. It seemed like he was just behind in the chores of, like you're saying, protecting the supports, like rotation up into the high ground, or like trying to be aggressive, or protecting lip on an engage. It was just kind of all over the place. So
and Hawk's such a good D.Va player. I mean, he's getting a ton of value. Like he's like making it work. But I do feel like I just want to see, even if they're gonna just feel like D.Va's mostly good, I still want to see Hawk playing Winston and like whatever it is, 25% of some of his playtime on those maps, because I just think there are spots where I don't think you can I don't think you can justify the D.Va pick over the Winston. Like I would give up 60% D.Va ult to play Winston, or whatever. Maybe not 100%. And bomb's pretty decent, and remaking is good. But like honestly, with Brig, I think remaking is not that good because Brig can just hit you like a psycho while you're bombing, and then just block the bomb and finish you. Like that's a really dangerous thing to do. Like you can't bomb near Brig unless your whole team is like right there and killing them. But that's like a thing you can just do on Brig. You just like fearlessly stand next to the D.Va bomb, hitting, block the shield for block the bomb for like a millisecond, and then finish the D.Va. Like that's very scary on D.Va, or like the rally, canceling remix. Like those are scary interactions. You know, so I think it's much easier to proc on D.Va. You know, I don't love that hero, and I feel like they're forcing it a little bit just because Hawk's such a good player.
It's a stylistic thing for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I talked to Hawk, I think it was also like sort of their strategy for him to not really necessarily force practicing Winston during like the preseason or whatever.
Yeah, I don't like it that. I don't like that mindset that like, okay, you'll be the Winston player, I'll be the D.Va player, or like we'll split the hero roster. This like you get these and I get those. I really don't like that. I think that's like an outdated mentality. You can't sub out during the game, and like I don't think Hawk needs to like grind Winston, but I think he needs to be like ready to bring it out. And like I said, maybe it is, you know, if it's like there's a map where you want to play 75% D.Va and 25% Winston, you want Hawk to play, and you want him to feel good on the 25% of the playtime as well. So, yeah. I think that's an area where I do think Atlanta. I agree. I put them at number 1 on my power rankings. So it's weird to be criticizing them, but I just think that's like if they were looking to a place to get better, that's where I'd suggest it.
Mm-hmm. I think by the playoffs of like the midseason madness, like the first international competition that we're gonna get for this season, like if we're not seeing like an increase in Winston playtime for Atlanta, it's probably gonna be a little bit of a detriment than a boon, right? It's
yeah. I mean, we'll see how the patches go. Like, I think you mentioned the Ramattra, right? I think the reason that the meta has changed so strongly in favor, like in so many ways, is really the Cassidy changes. I think that's like a much more dramatic change than people realize. The Ramattra comp was a Cassidy comp. It's not a Ramattra comp. Ramattra is just like the hero you wanted to play, I guess, if you're gonna play this style. But like Cassidy, clearing your flankers with like. If you get stuck, you are going to use your escape skill on a flank, like period, right? You can't risk getting body shot as the thing blows up and you just insta die. You can't risk that, so you have to play around it. And then also 225 HP is a really big deal. Like it makes him much harder to burst. Those margins matter a lot on DPS, where Cassidy can like kind of semi front line and then roll back and like live on low HP. You know, it's like. So I think those nerfs really hurt Cassidy, and then without Cassidy, okay, there's no one suppressing us from slaying Sombra Tracer. Yeah.
I wanted to kind of pick your brain a little bit when it came to Brig, because, you know, somebody from Camp Houston, shout out Tarsha, he and I have gone back and forth a little bit regarding, you know, Overwatch 2 and like how, you know, objective control has worked in this new post flex tank world, right? I've dabbled with this idea at least recently. I think it was Lee J Gone in the Boston London matchup where, you know, he's running in, he gets nanoed, and he just locks down the push bot. He's locking down the point like 4v1, and he's just like this absolute raid boss of a character, right? How much of this new Brig change, how much of the increase in playtime is more of an extra resource to have like an extra big, for audio listeners, big bunny ears in this, an extra tank, or at least somebody to play the objective. In the past, we've seen it be Tracer in some instances where we're seeing a lot more like objective playstyle out of some Tracer players. Now with Brig, you know, is that increase due to, you know, her rework, or is it a little bit more like little column A, little column B? Like, is she a little bit more, you know, useful to have on the objective? Once you get her to the objective, you know, you can kind of leverage that map or that objective pressure.
Yeah, I do think that value of heroes, the value of a non-tanking hero to like semi-frontline, is something that's gone up with Overwatch 2. I think we saw a lot of Reaper last season for that same reason. Like in the before the Overwatch 2 even released, and when we were all scrimming on like the scuffed workshop Overwatch 1 patch, like Reaper Zarya just was tearing people apart because like it was just too much. I mean, the Reaper was like a god, you know, like it was just like just destroys everyone. Reaper with 2 bubbles back to back on him was like really crazy, you know? Like Zarya doesn't even bubble herself. She just bubbled, like Reaper just fearlessly running into you. He's like, and there's no stuns in the game, you know? It's like terrifying to play against that. So I think for that, like that was like the beginning of realizing, oh man, it's so good having a second tank, like or a hero that simulates it. I think Brig sort of is like that. I think you mentioned the nanoing Brig thing. I think one thing about nanoing Brig you have to remember is Brig does like drastically more damage than she did before because the bash now does a lot of damage. God, I can't believe that. Didn't on release, didn't the bash also do that much damage, but I had the stun too. So fucking broken that character came out. But actually unreal broken on the release. But
couldn't she one-shot Tracer back then?
I remember because I remember I had a match against Boston against Striker Tracer, and I was playing Brig on Gibraltar, and I don't know, I was just actually eating him. Like, you can't play Tracer in that patch. Like, truly, like the one patch in the history of Overwatch where Tracer is like non-viable. Like, don't play that. You know, like you just literally get one hit on something you can't react to. That's on like a 6-second cooldown. I mean, like, that is absurd.
You're playing a fucking horror game at that point. You lost.
Yeah, exactly. No, I mean, it's literally impossible to play Tracer into that hero. Like on their release, I mean, I was like jumping off the ship on Gibraltar to one shot him. It was like, it's like actually insane, you know. And there's but I think with Nano Brig now, it's like Nano Brig, like the one shot combo is one shotting 200 HP heroes. You just have to hit your whip, which is like actually a question now because it's not a stun. But like good players are gonna hit that. So like, I think people remember Nano Brig does like a lot of damage. It's like a very relevant amount of damage. And yeah, it like makes her like kind of semi unkillable. Since she's got, you know, like self heal. You don't have to worry about healing her after the nano, which you do with some heroes.
You pop rally. I think free fucking 100 armor.
I think there's a lot of reasons Brig has become so dominant. I think Brig is the best support against Sombra because you can break the hack like consistently if you're a good player just by like turning with shield. You don't have to hit a shot. You just turn with the shield, and that breaks hack. And that's like a game changing thing. Like if you even attempt hacking Brig, it's very risky. You know, because if she breaks your hack, it's like really bad on Sombra. You know, like if you attempt to hack and because most Sombras, there's I don't know if it's not I don't know if it's a bug. I mean, it's existed since Overwatch 2 came out. But if you start the hack and press shift or M1 or anything that cancels that breaks your stealth while you're hacking, you can shoot like as the hack ends basically. Like there's no delay from uncloaking. So most Sombras are going to do that every time. And so, I mean, sometimes you just hack just to like kind of control them and make them look at you. But most of the time when you're going for kills, you're like uncloak while you're hacking. So if the hack gets broken, you committed, you know, you're uncloaked now. So a hero that breaks hacks is like super scary to play against. And also just being able to boop the Winston jump, being able to block pulse bombs. She has like very unique utility in the full dive comp. And so I think with Cassidy being not such a strong hero, and the Sombra Tracer taking over the meta, then Brig is just like a very natural choice. So like, yeah, she's gotten changes. Yeah, she has this new stun. I don't even think the stun's like nice, I guess, in the dive comp. It's like scary.
Cherry on top, yeah.
But I don't personally think it's that. I think honestly the old ult might have been better. But also she's got insta heals on the pack now, and insta heals on Tracer and Sombra 1v1s are super impactful because it's not like getting a Harmony Orb where you can like recover the 1v1. The instant heal is like you're behind and now you're ahead in the 1v1. I mean, like instantly, right? And you can't react to that as the other Tracer other than like, oh crap, I have to run, you know? Like, whereas when the other guy gets a Harmony Orb, you might just still be able to kill him, you know? Like, it's not, you know, like if you're winning the 1v1 and he's like running away, you're going to be able to chase and finish it probably, even though they get the orb. But with the pack, it's like instantly your 1v1 is over and you need to kite or get your own pack. And so that like instant swing on an auto aim heal is a really big deal. So I think Brig just fits very well into the meta, and she's gotten these changes. So and she's like a good Overwatch 2 hero. So it's always a million things. In answer to your original question, that is one element that she's like a semi frontliner. Right. But I don't think that's like the key really. I think it's all these things together.
Right. Yiska?
Yeah,
how do we feel?
No, like I think I had a point about Atlanta where we got a little bit of off track. Where let me run this by you because theoretically this is probably the worst tank meta they could currently hit. I think probably Winston is their worst hero. Maybe it's Ryan, not 100% sure, but everything else seems like a shoe-in, right?
I mean, Dongak looks pretty good on Winston in my opinion. I don't think he's bad. Like I think he's like, he had bad results in contenders, but I don't know. I guess it's just his bad teammates or something because he looks pretty good to me on Winston. I mean, he also has a very sick team, but like, who knows? I think they don't look weak playing Winston when Dongak plays. And they play Winston the whole time. They do not look weak. I mean, overall, it's not just Flip and Stalker. Like, your Winston needs to be good too. So,
I mean, it's not
but
just
maybe
limit
you're right.
soccer.
Theoretically, it's the worst, but they're just so good.
Yeah, and then the question is like, would they be in more trouble? Or let's ask this: will they be in trouble if they meet Houston? And like,
I think Houston's the only team that can beat them.
Yeah, right
now. They're just too good to anyone else to lose to them. Mostly because I think Lip and Stalker is like arguably the best Sombra Tracer duo. Except maybe I think Happy Pelican is the only duo competitive on that hero duo.
I will say I've had my opinion changed. I've always drawn some criticism for Junkbuck. I think it was like 2021, 2020, in that era where I was like, man, I don't know if Happy can hang on these flank heroes. Like, yeah,
no.
He's a gamer.
Happy's a fucking god. People don't know
He's
how
definitely
good he is. He can play
changed my
everything
mind.
too.
Yeah.
What I think, because I mean I'm biased because I helped put together the first 5 players of the Houston roster before my contract ended. Because I was on a guaranteed contract. So even though I was like gonna retire, I still was helping in the offseason. Gargo came after I left. But it makes sense. I mean, that was always the plan, was that like, okay, the 6th player will be an off-tank fill player, whoever we can get, you know. But the focus is on having the best 5 we can have. And for that, it was like Happy Pelican was the dream. And we knew, I mean, obviously we were wanting to keep Pelican. He's a fucking god. It's like one of the best players in the game. And bringing Happy back was always a goal, because Happy is not just a hit scan monster and also flexible, but he's a very smart player, like a very, very smart player. He really understands the game. He understands every hero in the game. He knows everyone's job. He knows what his job is. That's what makes Sombra players. Well, you need good mechanics on Sombra to have like good tracking and stuff. But that's what makes a really good Sombra. They know always what the priority is. They have to be efficient. Like just efficiency mindset is very important on Sombra. Like where you're putting the TP, how risky are you with the TP, how forward is it, how back is it? Like these are crucial decisions on Sombra that have big implications on how much impact you have in the game, how fast your EMPs are. Yep. And that's like very suited to Happy's strengths as a very intelligent player. And that's why he can play everything, in my opinion, because he's very intelligent.
Go ahead, Yiska.
Like my problem becomes like, if Atlanta, and for sure, like every Sombra meta is probably just a shoe-in for Atlanta given Lip. I think the gap is pretty big.
Yeah, Lip's the original great Sombra. He's still arguably the best.
Yeah, but the question is like, what kind of argument? How can the meta even develop as to not favor or like make it look like Atlanta will be, you know, favorites for the rest of the season? Because yes, like especially like the one question mark we have is the tank role, right? Despite them having a double up, even in a meta where it's probably the least favorable to them, they still look dominant.
Yeah.
The one question mark then to me is like, okay, what can Houston do? And maybe others can also bring it to something to the table. But yeah, it's getting scary for me in terms of like how do you take care of this Atlanta team, right?
Yeah, I think Atlanta's got I put them on rank 1 of the power rankings, but I think this is a meta where I would probably predict Houston in a head-to-head, just because it's a Winston meta and Fearless is the best. So yeah, but I think those are the 2 best teams clearly right now in the West, in my view. I don't really think there's anyone competing with those. Like I won't predict a single team against them unless it's each other, right?
Yeah. I
see them as like a clear top 2, and then people are fighting for 3rd realistically in this meta. Maybe someone else will like rise and improve, but right now that's how it looks.
Is there any chance for Shock doing that?
No, I don't think so, personally. I think Shock downgraded supports. I think people don't talk about that enough. I don't. I think Junbin is great, but I think Kaluj was like maybe unfairly maligned on that team. I think people underrated Kaluj on that team. Yeah. I think he's very good and very smart. But the biggest thing for me is supports, honestly. I think like Finn is a very good mechanical player and like solid, and Vindam's like been around a long time. He's like a solid player, but like I don't think he's as good as Violet. I don't think he can play every hero on the roster like Violet can. I mean, so I do think they've gotten weaker on support, and I think support matters a lot in Overwatch 2. I think you need strong supports. I think every role matters more in Overwatch 2. There's no freebie roles. Like in the beginning in Overwatch 1, it was like fucking, I don't know, Beyond Aura on Lucio, good job. And then there's like Mercy metas where like, I don't know, I played Mercy in the Overwatch League because I just hide. That's my playstyle. I don't do anything. I just hide and res and pocket people. Like it is fucking easy, honestly, to play a high value style. I mean, theoretically you can get more value on Mercy by like baiting yourself and like almost dying but not dying. That's like the most valuable thing Mercy can do, is like bait people to try to kill you. But against the best players in the world, that's like just not viable. Like they're just gonna 2-shot you instantly. There's like no way to do that. Like, you know, or like Widow's just gonna instantly headshot you. So you just play to like never show yourself. That's the play style. And so like that's a bit of a freebie role. Like I'm not an experienced Mercy player, but I had like really low deaths in the Overwatch League on Mercy because I just didn't do anything. I just played to never die. That's like my only mindset. And it's not hard to do that if you're like a player who understands the game. You know, you don't have to be like individually good. But now I think every role you have to be individually good on every hero. And the no aim easy heroes are like getting worse and worse in a competitive meta, which is how they should be. It means the game's being balanced better.
Yes, it's also like if you even if you think about like what might happen down the line with, you know, more double flex coming in, you know, think of like Zen metas or whatever, and like it's Atlanta still has Vigilante sitting there. Right?
Yep.
Yeah, agree. I think adding Vigilante to the Chio Fielder duo is really terrifying. I think that they become much stronger as a duo with that, because I think they were always, Fuel last season was at their weakest playing like double flex support. That was when they were most vulnerable, because I just don't think Chio has like the individual mechanics on like a heavy aim hero, but he is like one of the best in like all the main supports. And to be fair, he can probably just play BAP and like heal like a crazy person. But like even I think even Dallas last year was like sometimes they had Chio on Zen, like Fielder on BAP, and like because we might play Brig, you know. So yeah, I agree. I think adding Vigilante makes that team a lot scarier. I think they're very, very good. But I think Houston is also very, very good. I think Houston supports also have no weaknesses in my eyes. There's no meta weaknesses for them.
No, not at all. And that was like the big question mark. I mean, yes, of course, like fans of the show will draw, you know, some problems with me saying this, because I've historically always asked Houston to, you know, grab a Tracer player. Like, you're so close to like winning the championship. You got Gargoyle to kind of fill in the gaps there. You have, you know, this main support, flex support.
You mean in the current era, like you want another Tracer besides Pelican? I think Pelican's a top tier Tracer.
No, 100%. And that's kind of like the immediate rebuttal that like I always have to like face is like, yes, I agree. Like I think Pelican unironically is quite a good Tracer player, but it's always in like the context of like, okay, well, what happens if we need him to play Genji, or if we need him to play?
That's
like,
why we got Happy.
That's why
I think Happy is also, maybe Happy's not like as good as Pelican at Tracer, but I think Happy is like, if not S tier, he's A tier on Tracer. I mean, he's like you're never. He's not Kevster maybe, but he's like he can hang with Kevster. He's not gonna let Kevster run you over.
I was just always gun shy from seasons in the past. I think this week one has bolstered my confidence in that tenfold. I think like there's no room there for me to like criticize anymore. I think he looks great. My kind of interesting take, I threw this at Custa I think last week for this big episode that we did. I was like, I don't know if Houston is going to drop an escort map. And like his take was, if they go head to head with Atlanta, they might. And I'm like, I don't know, man. Like,
yeah, I mean, this is the meta where this is an exciting meta to see Houston Atlanta clash, because I think this one, just because it's a Winston meta, probably favors Houston. But I think these are, for me right now, these are the top two teams. I would put them at 1 and 2 on strength of roster. And it's just a question of who's on top. And I don't know if we can really answer that until we see them play.
Yep.
And it can also, I think, honestly, that matchup is so close, it's like an any given day situation. Like, I think it's like up to individual players performing better or worse than average, you know?
No, agree. It does seem like they're carving out the pack. I thought, you know, Shock's debut, you know, a lot of normal Shock things.
Soft. Yeah. They should have lost 3-0. Like, Toronto threw the Koth. Actually, Toronto threw the Koth. It should have been a 3-0. I mean, also, Toronto probably should have did a better job like the rest of the series and not let the comeback happen. They probably could have won those maps too, but arguably the last 2 maps were like most favorable to Shock of the whole series. So maybe once Shock got to map 4, they already won, or they already had like a good chance to win, but it should have been a 3-0. Like Toronto threw the Koth round, which I did a telestration on, but that was like actually game losing mistake on Koth not touching point into the window with May, just ice block on point. I mean, like they tried to, they were just too slow. They didn't realize in time that Kaluj had to back from the Rhine shield, and either the Lucy or the May had to make the read that they need to touch and risk their life. But it's like, you can't. Yeah, you have to. And I think they would agree with me too. Like, they would be like, yeah, that's a fuck up, you know. And unfortunately, a tiny fuck up like that cost you the series.
Yeah, it seemed like Toronto in general like had a great showing, kind of as expected with Shock. You know, tend to start that is a little shaky. I was interested in kind of getting your take on the Toronto Glads game, because it felt like Kalush had like one of the most difficult times like having a word in edgewise in any of these like posturing for team fights. Like they had a really hard time, at least to me. It seemed like they had a really difficult time like being proactive. Like they start Koth, they're running into like a soldier comp, like they're down in like total health pool. They have to, I think he has like 3 passive jumps, and they just end up losing the fight just because you just can't heal.
Yeah,
soldiers
I mean, I
pump.
think it's a great cheese on that Koth map on Oasis. I think that map has always been like a slow
Sure.
fighting map for dive, where the dive you don't want to hard commit into anything, into rush into mirror dive. Like you don't hard commit on each other on that map. It's very pokey and very like the fight usually ends long after the cap is open and both teams are stalling the point forever. So I think playing a comp that like prevents the enemy team from stalling point is like a really great cheese from Glads. I think it's like well selected. So honestly, I think they just got out comped. I think like that's a great read on the meta from Gladdy. That's like maybe one of the best maps in the game to do it on. And then we even saw, I feel like Toronto totally overthought it, because the next map they roll out on this like Rhine shit because they think, oh, Glad's just gonna anti-cheese, and then no, Glad, we're playing Winston here, and then
it was
they
it was
lose the map off that.
It was, I mean, that's Koth, and they go and make like King's Row, and they roll out on attack on like this kind of pokey like Echo Hanzo stuff with like Sam's in the roster, and it never felt like, even on push, like they were kind of just throwing these, they're expending a ton of resources into fights that like they should be just winning. Like you just hit them with the wallet, they you dump ults onto them, and you should just kind of brute force it, and they just kind of couldn't get it over the edge. Where do you think that is stemming from, if you had to guess? Is this more of like just a bad day at the office? Because it did seem like a big departure away from like the Shock game versus the Glads game.
I think it's too soon to tell. I will say, like, for instance, on the push, I think Dante genuinely is one of, if not the best Junker Queen. Like, I think he's like very elite on that hero. I think he was like a major part of our success when we played him on that role in like the Junker Queen one trick meta. I think he was like really solid. So, to be honest, I think Dante is like a very formidable opponent, even for someone like Kaluj, who arguably has like more flexibility than Dante. But I think on Dante's peaks, he's going to peak higher because his individual mechanics are so elite, which is, I think, like very emphasized on Junker Queen. Like just hitting every shotgun, headshot, like hitting a bunch of daggers, like that's game winning. I think there was a moment where Dante like daggered the Sojourn off high ground. It's like, okay, the fight's over now because I get this skill check. Like that's really huge. I don't think you can really say from the outside in. I do feel like the DPS roster is a little weird for Toronto, personally. I think Sam, since Hanzo's so dominant, I think it's like, and there's some Mei use, I think Sam has like a good meta for him where Hanzo and Mei are both relevant heroes. But to be honest, I feel a little bit weird about the roster because I just think, I think Speedily can like also play those heroes, and then Speedily is the Tracer player. And I guess Sam also is like decent on Tracer as well, but I think the team is like lacking Tracer strength, which is weird to say on a team with 3 people who can all handle the Tracer well in the Overwatch League. Maybe Speedily can reach that like peak Tracer, which you want on your team, like an S tier Tracer. But I don't know if he's there yet, or maybe like their playstyle around it isn't as tight yet. I still believe in this team. I still think they can find their footing and make it work. Like we've seen a lot of like good signs out of them, but it has been just not quite enough. And even Hydron's been putting down big picks a lot of the time on like all of his hit scans. I don't think you could ever fault him on like the hit scan. But they do seem to play more hit scan than other teams. And like I feel like that's part of what reason they lost to Gladius. Gladius was like, no, Kai does not play, like no hit scan. And if we need hit scan, Kevster will flex to hit scan, and Kevster is a monster on hit scan as well. So it's like, we're always ready to play Summer Tracer. We're never going to be caught without our Summer Tracer players in. And I think that could be weird for Toronto because they're actually cycling the DPS quite a lot. And so I think it's going to be harder for them to, and that's kind of inherent to the DPS roster, unless you just don't use Sam, honestly. And so I think Sam's in a weird spot, basically, because I think his best heroes, this is a good meta for him, Mei and Hanzo. But I think it's hard. I mean, I feel this way, just maybe this is like my experience. Like being a projectile player is like not viable in the Overwatch League. It's just not viable. Like you need to have some, you need to be like dominant on at least Tracer, but probably also on, Sombra and hit scan here. Like the flexibility requirement on DPS is so high now. And also there's just rewards, not even like any fault of an individual player. You can be a great player, but there's just some big rewards to teams with less players in the sense of like swapping less is better. Like that's why I would rather, even with how strong Atlanta's support lineup is, I would still rather be Houston because they don't swap. Like I think that's just inherently better. Like the players get more playtime, they get more experience, they try more things, they're more flexible, they're ready to adapt in more situations. And I think it's just harder to be a team with 3 players on a roll that actually, that like it's just harder for each and every one of the like Hydron, Sam, and Speedily. They're all at a disadvantage relative to Happy and Pelican, who are going to play everything, because Happy and Pelican get to experience everything, they try everything. Like I don't know, I just think it's a hard thing to do to make it work with a 3. I think even more so on DPS maybe than support, because support has a little bit more defined roles than DPS, which I think role definition on DPS is gone. It's just individual strengths now.
Yeah, and that was kind of the frustrating part, because it looked like haha pro-am, like we'll see how much this is actually taken seriously. It seemed like Sam had that like defined role where it's like, oh cool,
yeah,
do you want to come in and Rialto? You can
on Hanzo.
Yeah, no, it was good. Fair.
Like and like his Hanzo, that's all I always thought about Sam. Like, okay, he's like really good on Hanzo and Mei, but he went like another level on Hanzo and Mei, and that's kind of the level I think you need to like always be on to make that type of hero pool viable. Is you're like forcing your will on the game. Like, I will play this fucking hero. Like, try diving me. I'll just headshot your tracer. Like you need to be on that. That's like a crazy peak to stay on. Like, no criticism of Sam as a player, but like that is a crazy peak to stay on, to be able to like keep forcing those comps, and not get cheesed by anything. Like, yeah, it's just they just have like a tough like. I don't want to make it sound like I'm criticizing them as players. I just think it's hard to do what they're trying to do. No. It can work though, and maybe in time they'll find the rhythms, but I think it will be kind of meta dependent.
Yeah. Were you surprised when they designated Speedily to be the tracer?
No, I think that's the right decision. I don't know who else would do it.
Yeah. Can't be Sam.
I mean, I think Hydron can play tracer, but Hydron's your hit scan player, so I think Speedily, it makes a ton of sense for him. I think he's a very young player, and I think he was like the Echo guy and the Genji guy, But I think for him, I think it's exactly the right decision for his career. I think it's very smart for him to be like, I'll be the tracer player, and to like commit and practice and grind, because, I mean, he was the one to like take Echo. He was the first best Echo, like even before he was in the Overwatch League. It was like, this guy's a freak on Echo. He's destroying the rank ladder. He's like forcing Echo every game, and it's still scary. He's like so good. He can like 1v1 the tracers and stuff. I think. So he's hit these crazy peaks on a new hero, and now it's time for him to like step into the ring with the tracer, which is like the Overwatch League hero. Like, it's in the logo, and that's like, honestly, the people doing the logo had no fucking idea about the game, most likely, but they were right, because tracer is the most broken hero in the game, and it always will be. It's like too broken. It's a hero that is just always relevant. The fastest rollout in the game, the most efficient heal usage in the game, arguably the best DPS ult in the game. It's a very absurdly strong hero, and so it's just like always relevant. And as any DPS player, put that hero in your pool, grind it. I don't care who you are, I don't care what you play. Make that hero a comfort, and you'll become a much stronger player. It is like, no matter what role you are, you need to have that player in your pool, the hero in your pool.
It's so interesting because you brought this up a little bit earlier, where it's like, okay, like you can't just be like the projectile guy, like you've got to have something more. And it's interesting that we're seeing, at least in APAC a little bit, like Pineapple's kind of like evolve his hero pool, because he was kind of like this tracer one trick back in Contenders. He plays behind Shy and Alfie, like, you're not getting starting time, sorry guy. And now he's coming out and he's showing all these like he's showing a little bit more of his hero pool. So it is this like evolution of like, okay, cool, like you're either a projectile player and you have to add tracer, or you're a tracer player and you have to add something else. And it's, we even kind of saw that. Granted, Edison isn't, doesn't fit the bill, but an evolution of hero pools nonetheless.
Yeah, I think the last kind of one trickable role on DPS is hit scan, like core hit scan.
Yeah.
Because there's just maps where it's like you're gonna play Widow the whole time, and like you can just be like a monster Widow player and come in on this map and like it's Circa Royale, like you're not swapping Widow, like maybe you go Ash, oh no, like right. So if you can handle like a few hit scan, that is like the last viable one trick. Just because there's certain maps, but like even then, those players are not full time starting ever.
Oh no.
Maybe in like maybe certain metas, right? There could be a hit scan only meta, so they can full time. But even that, I would say like those players who also have tracer in their pool are so much more valuable. Than the players who are like, no, I'm really just gonna play hit scan. And so you have to be like, I think like Kai is a player like that. I think he's like very focused on hit scan. But like, not only can Kai, he can handle the other heroes, but he's also like has an insanely high peak on hit scan. You need to sort of be easily in the top 5 to be a like I'm gonna play hit scan type player.
Mm-hmm. No,
like outside of that, you need flexibility.
When it came to games, Yiska, was there anything that you caught your eye from the West?
From the West, I mean, what I was pretty impressed by was how dominant Houston was against Glads. I feel like like I don't have the numbers, but if anyone was to produce the amount of team fights Houston takes per minute, they got to be the fastest in the league. Which
is a crucial skill in that comp. Is like very, very, very important because it's an ult cycle comp, and so every fight is like a chance to trade ults efficiently. It's a very efficient comp that like most of your heroes self heal and like get value over long periods of time. It's also very important like when you lose fights, not everybody dies. You hold map space with the living players, and so the next fight is faster. The retake to the position is faster for the people who do respawn. It's a very it like comes out of your skill in the comp. It's not just like we're an efficient team. It's like, no, it's like the fact that we instantly read that we lost and we stopped trying to win and we played a hold ground. Like you have to have very clean reads of the game to do that.
I'm so glad you bring this up because yes, I think Houston agreed. I think they're an incredibly high tempo team. Absolutely beat the pants off of Glads. You want a great example of exactly what you're talking about? Go watch Charge versus Dallas on Hollywood B. The amount of like space that Piggy and Choi are able to take, just the two of them, just pushing the advantage, being hyper kind of like you're saying, very efficient. You're taking the space. You don't need like a ton of resources. There are some, orbiting factors on why they're able to do this, but like they just stick us apart on the cart for like half of B and like they just absolutely slap up Dallas. I think it's a crystalline example of what you're talking about, but continue. Sorry.
Yeah, so it's a very honestly that just requires a lot of individual skill and comfort on the heroes. It means your Tracer needs to not die, your Sombra needs to not die, your Winston needs to not die, your supports need to like one of them needs to live. So like even I think that's where one thing I like to talk about a lot for like the elite level of play is your read of the game. I think it's a relevant skill for everybody, like everybody who plays Overwatch. I think your read of the game is like the most fundamental skill of the game. It's just knowing like when you need to go back, like when it is good to go back and when it is good to press forward. Like most people have very bad reads of the game, even at the elite level of rank. Like I was playing a ranked game the other day and I'm on Sombra. We're playing like Sombra Tracer, basically the meta. We're playing like Lucio Kiriko Sombra Tracer on New Queen Street. And we're like crushing the other team because they're playing hit scan and we're just fucking them with dives. But then like they pop rally and mine. We got one kill and then they pop rally and mines. And I'm like, oh, back. And my team's like, oh, we can fight. I'm like, no, back. And then they all die. I'm like, you guys are just fighting into ults like noobs, like you don't know that we're winning the game. We have the objective lead. They're pressing ults. We can fight, but like, do not die. Like if you die, you're terrible. Like just fight enough with your life that you're never risking your life. If you risk your life to commit and the enemy team's popping ults, you're a noob basically. Like and that's. I mean, I said noob is too harsh of a word, right? Because like these are top 500 players, and they just don't have the read to know. Yeah, we'll fight, but like. Don't die. You know what I mean? Like fight, but fight and fall back and fight and fall back and fight and fall back. And then when their ults run out, we'll kill them all. Like why would we fight at their strongest moment when they're pressing ults? Like why would we do that? Why would we commit? Like you don't understand the game if you do that. And so even though we get a kill, it's like those ults are more important than a kill, And so that your ability to like weigh those factors against each other. I mean, and that I'm saying that like, oh, these guys are stupid. They're not stupid. They're good players, right? And like we won the game, we played well. Everyone was playing well overall. But that's a skill that is like very rare that players just immediately feel the flow of the fight. Are we winning and we can like press the gas and go more and more, or are we winning and we need to like take the objective? Are we winning and we need to like catch one guy behind us? Are we winning and we need to like go dive the back line? Like there's so many decisions you can make with these highly mobile comps. There's so many ways you can play it, and to make the right call requires a very nuanced understanding of the game. Like your ability to just know what the game state is at all times and what you should do in that game state. Very few players have that. Even elite players with elite mechanics and like top tier play and like they're some of the best players in the world, they still make mistakes in this regard because it's incredibly complicated. It's like you're playing the game in like a first person view and you somehow have to like make all these good decisions with such limited information. It's very hard to do. And so That's what distinguishes, I think, the very best teams. And that's why I think players like Happy, Pelican, Fearless, and the Outlaws, Shu, and Violet, like, they're all players that I would say are like high IQ players who are going to make those reads well. And so when they lose team fights, everybody already knows they lost, like, before the first person dies, I would guess, a lot of the time. And because you know that, you make decisions where you like cut down your risk taking, and now you're holding space. And if the enemy team throws and like gives you a free pick, your Tracer gets a pulse, all right, then we're just gonna put the gas on again. But we don't force that. We let you come to us, you know. And I think that intelligence, and that's like a veteran experience thing as well, is gonna play out really to the value of teams with a lot of players like that in the Sombra Tracer meta. I think it's a lot easier in like sniper metas, where it's like they just shoot at each other, whoever gets the kills wins, you know. Like the highly mobile metas are the ones that are like a true test of your IQ as a player.
Look, what you just described in your ranked experience felt like the last fight of the Soul Bowl, where like they pick Profit off. It's 4v5. They don't really even have an old disadvantage, but just everything that can go wrong goes wrong, right? Like, like they nano into purple. Like fix it just.
Oh, they like lose the nano heal.
Yeah,
that's really bad. That is really bad. Sometimes it's unlucky, but what can you do?
Like there are instances where like that game entirely was just like, oh dang, like they hit a nade as we nano, that's, you know, unlucky. But like the amount of times that Infernal are just trying to like go for the win, right? Like you're saying, like they're not necessarily like losing very gracefully, they're not giving up space, they're committing into fights that they probably shouldn't, right? And it was just a rough game. Me
and Junkbuck had a saying last year, like a way we think about the game. You know, we say unlucky, but that's just like being nice. Yeah. It's your skill. Everything that happens in the game is your skill. Sure. And if you think it's not, you're delusional. You're delusional. Yeah. Like as much as it's like it does feel unlucky when the nade hits, like the second your nano comes in on that target, your nano was slow. Yep. Like, or you didn't see the nade coming in, or you weren't in position to get the information you needed to make the right play. Right. So like theoretically, there's moments that it's like, okay, you were playing optimally in every way, and it still went against you. But that is like really rare. Like, I mean, the game is so complicated, you can't realistically expect humans to like play perfectly. But as a player, and as in terms of like analyzing the game, ultimately it's all your skill. It's the other honest skill that she anticipated that like this nade was a good nade to throw, and like that you might want, that you need to heal this guy. And whether, I mean, maybe they knew you had nano, maybe they don't, but they know you need to heal this guy, and I naded him exactly the moment you needed to heal him. That's their honest skill, right? Or that you let them get low so that the nade looked good to their honest, right? That's your skill. And so it's all, as much as it's unlucky, that's unlucky is being nice. It's always your skill. Or like as a player, that's how you should look at the game. That it's always your skill, even when maybe like, you know, 10% of the time it is truly out of your control, unlucky. Usually it's somebody's fault. Yes. But that's the nature of the game. Like the better team wins, you know? And so
words to live by, I'd say. I think taking that, you know, mantra to life is probably, you know, a good way, a good piece of advice, Jake.
Exactly. You know, you don't control everything that happens to you, but you control how you react.
Yep. Would agree. No, I to kind of circle back to like the Houston Glads game, I thought Glads like a little bit surprising. I thought, you know, we were watching this live in our kind of like a little watch party, and it seemed like the end of Hollywood was just like, all right, well, you know, if this fight, you know, Glads need Kevster to hit a 2K, and they do, and somehow Houston beat them back. It's like, okay, next
honestly,
fight, right?
Honestly, I think forcing the hit scan on that map is like really crazy, crazy. I think on defense it can work. Sure. But then once Houston full capped, I was like, game over. And then somehow like Kai kills the Ana first on attack on an A. That's really crazy. Like that should not happen, you know? So Kai is like, I mean, that's what I mean by like forcing your will in the game. Like that's the level you like. In my opinion, it's a wrong pick. Like I just don't. I don't agree with playing hit scan on attack. Like I think if you have a player like who can play both Sombra or Tracer and hit scan at the equal level, maybe the hit scan defense is viable. I could be convinced of that. It's like Hollywood B is a very strong hit scan defense map. Like it's very, very, very strong to control the high ground with a hit scan and just like shoot down on people. It's very hard for Sombra or Tracer to clear the car because the defensive hit scan and supports have perfect vision of car like the whole time from high ground. So it's very hard to force car. And it's also very hard to dive top because it's very constricted how you actually get there. Yeah, so there's reasons to play hit scan on defense. And so I don't feel that bad about Glady playing Kai. But to be honest, I think attack was like, oh my God, how is he getting these kills? Like he is forcing it. But he is so insane that he made it where, and he got frags. And yet Houston is just like they're clutching like crazy.
Still can't get it over. Yeah, it was like every time it was like, okay, 10% chance that you hit this skill check. He hits the skill check. What the like? How?
Yeah,
You're
exactly.
doing everything you need to do.
He was doing. I mean, he was making it look good. I don't think it is good, but he was making it look good. Like respect the Kai. Like very few people in the league would have made it through A or B. Or even get close to C. I mean, so yeah, it's like it is a very crazy performance from Kai. But ultimately, I think like you saw it at the end, like Violet goes Zen, and that's when it's like game over because like you're not punishing us for playing Zen. We have one of the best Zens in the league on main support. How's that feel? You know, like that's the strength of Houston is like if you like on maybe they could have honestly maybe second it's not that good to play Zen, but on third, you know, backs to the wall, Zen is like a really great hero in that spot. And then the dive is not as strong because you don't have Sombra. So like Violet gets to play Zen. And like I think that's a huge reason why the third point was so dominant of a hold. Yeah. And also on top of that, of course, like every time you get a kill, Happy, Pelican, and Fearless trade it back. And so as defenders, that's a winning strategy. You don't need to be perfect and have everyone be alive. You just need to trade. And it's defense. And it's also one thing I thought about Hollywood third is like, holy shit, this is a godly Kiriko map. You literally spawn on Kiriko, instantly shifted the card. Like you have a 0 spawn time. Like your spawn is normally your time back into the fight is like your spawn time plus the duration of the time you get back, right? But for Kiriko, it's literally your spawn time plus 0 because that's the amount of time it takes to get back to the fight. So, I mean, I was like, holy crap, just the way the spawn is organized on that map is like kind of insane. Kind of like Gibraltar third or something where Jericho is going to like drastically change how easy it is to clutch that map. Yeah, you just instantly are in the fight, which is a big deal. I mean, that's like, usually your spawn time is like 50% of the time, like, or like half the times your spawn, half the time is getting back to the fight. That's like a pretty normal average. Some maps it's longer, some maps it's shorter. But, so it's like, it's almost like a 50% reduction in how long you're dead when you get picked if you're going to switch to Kiriko, which is pretty insane.
Yeah.
And further makes hit scan worse because you don't have like you're less likely to get a clean fight with a hit scan because now there's one more vulnerable hero who needs care. So Ana, Brig, and Ashe all need care from each other, and Ashe doesn't provide. Only thing Ashe provides to that is the coach gun to boop Winston. But Fearless is so fucking good. He's impossible to boop, man. Playing against that guy is so hard. Like it's actually insane how good he is at like playing around the boops. Like he knows exactly how to jump, where to jump from, the timing to jump. Like he's just perfect. It's very scary.
He's a gamer. He's a fucking stud. Yiska, any final thoughts in the West before I toss some predictions at the two of you?
No, all good with you.
All right, some lightning rounds before we skedaddle out of here with Jake. We'll start with APAC. We have the two front-running teams. The narrative is it's Dallas, it's Spark. Everybody else is relevant. We get the first head-to-head. Who do you think takes it?
You think Dallas is relevant after their performance?
I mean, preseason.
I don't.
Preseason coming in. So you think this is a kind of a pretty
I think
easy
Spark is the only relevant team in the East for the global competition.
Now, when it comes to global competition, how, granted, week one, not a ton of, film for APAC. Yeah. Do you expect this roster to be, maybe challenging for a championship? Challenging for,
I think if they played in NA, they might be.
Okay.
But I don't think they're going to be because they're in APAC. I don't think they can't reach their peak, I think, because their competition is not good enough. I think it's like hurts them a lot to not have a true competitor because they're just going to win all their scrims. Like they're never going to lose a scrim. So how do you get better?
Yeah.
Right.
They're losing scrims pretty heavily at the moment.
Spark are?
Yeah.
Oh no.
Oh God. I don't know. I don't know how that team should lose scrim. I feel like there's I don't know who. I don't know. I feel like the APAC region, like there's so many weak teams in that region, so like I just feel
Infernal farming.
You're struggling to get like all right. The biggest thing APAC struggles with actually, this is a very good meta for APAC to field a strong team.
Yes.
Because this is an APAC meta where you play like Sombra Tracer full dive and you like play it all the time. But the metas that like really screw APAC up is when it's like you're cheesing. Like when I mean I think that's always been the difference for me. NA cheeses hardcore. Like if you put in a player who I think is gonna play like Rhine, I'm rolling out with Sebastian. Like I think they just do not do that in APAC. Like it's always been a thing. It's always felt that way. Like on Koth, holy crap, man. NA Koth is like it's crazy. People are playing like cheese. Okay, and like you're gonna cheese this. Well, I'm gonna go an even crazier cheese. Like we're cheesing each other's cheeses. We're not even cheesing the meta anymore. There's no one's playing the meta because it's like a map that everyone cheeses. So people just stop trying to play the meta on like the certain Koth maps. Like usually it's like the close quarters Koth maps where you're playing some craziness with like May and
University
Bastion
control
or
center,
whatever.
yeah.
Exactly. Your third point Koths that are just weird and small and like chokeable. Mostly where like maybe like May becomes viable, which makes like this whole other roster of heroes viable, who can like now you can like catch people really well and isolate them, which is very unique for a hero in Overwatch or a non-tank hero. Actually, I mean, now that tanks don't have stuns, like it's pretty much unique in the whole game, like Maywall is. So those comps become very viable. And I just think, I don't know, APAC has always felt like they just are too rigid on the comps. Like they mirror match each other too much, and there's not, the comps aren't forced to beat everything. They're forced to beat a selection of comps, but they're not forced to beat the really crazy shit, which I think just for whatever reason, that's always been like the NA ethos is like, maybe it's like the ranked, we got like tons of one tricks playing weird cheese heroes. Although I think that's gone down drastically in Overwatch 2, thank God, because I think the game's just better designed. But still, I think NA pro players are like very well versed in cheeses. We all know how to like play the sim Rhine strat and like do it well, Like I just think APAC lacks a little bit of that diversity, and I think so. In the end, they could high roll on metas where it's like it's super stable and like and it's just like raw mechanical skill, and I think their players are good enough, like they can absolutely compete. But I think if it's a meta where there's tons of cheesing and stuff, that's where they're gonna fall short. And I think a lot of metas. Depends how the hero releases go and how the patches go, and it always depends on that. It's always RNG how the patches go.
Sure, of course.
But
That's
and I think their players
right?
are very strong. But I don't see them. I honestly think it's going to be like top 3 NA every tournament. Personally, maybe top 4. I honestly think it could be top 4 NA.
Full
top
NA
3
semis.
Yeah, I think that's how it's been. That's how it was last year, right?
Yeah.
And then what was the year before last? What was? Well, I guess in Overwatch 2. Last year it was like the Overwatch 2, and then like NA dominated, which I think Overwatch 2 made cheesing even more relevant in a weird way.
Do you think there's anything to the theory? Like, Fuel always starts slow, right? Like since they had Rush.
Yeah, and people said that about Shock too. I don't get this theory. Like, I don't get it. Like, also I think team identities are overrated. They're different players. Like, It's like a marketing ploy that they're the same team. They're not. They're just a different group of players. Like, you shouldn't think of a team as the team. I guess like coaches can institute a culture that can exist across years and stuff. But also, like, I mean, people say the Shock starts slow. No, the Shock just has like money, so they sign good players when they need them. And then their team gets better because they have a better player on their team. Like, they needed striker for playoffs, and they get striker. And a lot of teams will not do that. So I don't know. As much as so like those are factors that I consider significant, that a team has money and they're willing to sign a 6 player. But maybe Fuel this season is like, no, we're not going to do that. And so I don't think Fuel has like a bright spot to look forward to in the future. If anything, Fuel's fucked because you get the Winston meta first, and then there'll be patches to make the Winston come out of meta. But then by playoffs, it's back to the Winston meta. The cycle repeats. So it's going to end on a Winston meta. That's my prediction this year. Also, Winston is never balanced or rarely going to be
out of the meta
balanced because it's such a pro hero. It's like a pro player, like it's so weak and like everyone says on Twitter, oh my God, when I play Winston, everyone goes Bastion against me. It's like, yeah, well, people are not going Bastion against Winston in the Overwatch League. You're going to get hard countered by they're going to go Genji and just eat you or play double flex support. And so, which is like literally scarier than a Bastion. Like a Zen is a much scarier hero than a Bastion. If you play Bastion, I play Zen, I win, we can even keep playing Winston into it, So yeah, I think people are, Winston's just, those are the heroes that always end up being OP, the heroes that are like better in pro play. So it's like Tracer, Sombra, Winston. New heroes are OP because they're OP in rank play too. The devs want you to buy them. So new heroes can also be OP and get in the meta, but it's usually the heroes that are like scale with team play, which especially add the fucking ping system into the game. Holy crap, that makes dive so much better. Like having Sombra be able to like spam ping people. I love on Sombra when somebody's half health, I'm like spam pinging them through the wall the entire game, that guy's half health. So like not only it's like everyone gets my passive on Sombra if you play properly and you use ping, like that's crazy. That's like really, really crazy. And so I think, there's like a lot of things that make those pro play heroes hard to balance for the dev team. I have sympathy for them because you don't want them to be like completely non-viable for casual players. But if they're like decent for casuals, they're going to be broken for pros.
Yep. Agreed.
Yes, it's like the anti-Pharah.
Theoretically,
in a way.
Jake, would you just look for a Winston if you're Fuel? Because theoretically, like in the past, they always had the issues that they couldn't really sign Koreans. Like they always had to trade in A or whatever because the visa process takes so long. Now they don't have that issue. I'm not even sure. I wouldn't be able to say if there's anyone in APAC that's an easy slot in or whatever. But
I don't know if you're gonna get a better Winston than Hanbin. I think Hanbin Winston is like pretty decent, and so you're gonna spend a lot of money getting a better Winston than Hanbin. And is it really even worth it? Like, I believe in Hanbin for the solo tank. I think it's like, their DPS is Edison and Sparkle now?
Yep.
Honestly, I think Sparkle's really good, but I think Edison is like more of a hit scan player. I don't think he's that good off hit scan. I mean, he's like okay. He's solid. He's not like a hard weakness, but it matters. Like, the competition is so fierce. And I think in a meta where he can't play hit scan, it's going to be a weakness for them.
Yeah.
And then their supports is what? MCD and Liss. Yeah, I don't know about that. Those guys are not that good, in my opinion. MCD is like okay, but like Fielder is so much better, and Chio is so much better than I don't know. I haven't even seen Bliss play, honestly, so I don't know. But like I don't know who that guy is, so I just assume he's not that good.
Fair.
Which is probably bad, but like I feel like I know so many players. If I don't know you, I have to be like, prove me wrong. Like, I'm ready to be proven wrong. I'm ready to see you pop off and be proven wrong. I will never like commit to that because I generally don't have information.
Sure,
but I do think
he's a little skeptical. That's all.
Like,
can't blame the guy.
Just like they're like clearly downgraded. Like in a Winston meta. I mean, Hanbin is great, but he's a downgrade from Fearless on a Winston meta. Those supports are both downgrades from their past players on Fuel. And honestly, I don't even think Edison is that good on Sombra. I don't even think Fuel would have been that good in a Sombra Tracer meta.
Yeah.
Maybe Fearless it gets over the top. It's like, okay, you don't have to be that great at Sombra because you got Fearless, Like the rest of your dive triple is so good. But yeah, I don't know. I think the cracks are going to show. Like I think they're it makes sense. Like I'm sure they're spending a lot less money this year. I think they won and they're just going to chill. Like whatever. Like that's their decision. And I think they're in the weaker region. I think there's like a lot of reasons. Maybe they'll do okay in APAC, but I don't know. They got stomped by Charge. I think that looks really bad for them. I think that's like a huge. Maybe it's like wake up call. We can play better, but usually getting 3-0'd is not like almost did it, guys. Like, it's like no, you lost 3-0. Like you can occasionally have like a sort of a decent 3-0, but it's a 3-0. Yeah. So yeah, like as much as Glad's like like I was talking with Dante, he's like, yeah, we played really bad against Houston, which is like I can accept that. But even if you played really good, you don't win. Mm-hmm. Maybe you take maps, right? A map or two, but getting 3-0'd because you played bad, understandable, or like losing because you played bad, understandable. Losing by 3-0 because you played bad, I don't really believe it. You might have done better and like won some maps, but I don't really. I have a hard time accepting that like we're just gonna play better and win when we lost 3-0. I need to see. I don't know. You're just hoping for a meta change, or you can force your strength and try to be a weird team, which is a sort of okay choice, but it feels fucking bad. I mean, people have asked, there's like the teams who have done it over the years are like lionized in the history of Overwatch, right? There's like Chengdu, and then there's like Chengdu did it. I think like London did it last season, and people are like, they love it because it's like, it's awesome. It's like David and Goliath in the comps, and you want to see them make it work. And it's like the spirit of Overwatch, and it is fucking hard. It's like London, they like made it work. And they look pretty good in playoffs, and then they played against us, and we fucking ate them for breakfast. Our players are just so much better than theirs. And it's like, that was what I told our players before that match. I'm like, guys, they came so far in the power of friendship. That's fucking beautiful. Now we kill them. Like, send them home. Like, they're not as good as you. You guys you're all better players. Like, show them how much better you are. That was my pre-match hype talk for the guys. I'm like, just individually stomp them. Like, fuck the teamwork. Like, you're better than them. Show them. And like, the question is, if you're a team who accepts we are not better than them and we're going to play to our strengths to like make it work with a weird comp, that's probably because you're not better than them and you probably won't win in the end.
Yep.
Like, but it's like it's cutting your losses. Sometimes that's actually, it takes like it's a little
maturity.
Bit like, maturity or like, it's like practical and it's real, but it's also hard. And it also usually means you're capping yourself.
Yeah.
Like
limiting.
Those teams never win in the end. Because for obvious reason, like the reason the meta is the best is because it can beat the cheese if you play it right. It's just maybe people don't know how to beat the cheese at first, or you cheese wins because they don't figure it out yet, but eventually they figured it out.
You have to work so much harder to make that style or your specific like lower
in
tier
a way.
style.
I think honestly, there's like a buff. It's like a short-term benefit of like of trickery of like people just don't know what to do against you, but you've played against their comp. You know exactly what to do.
Yeah.
But then that is time limited. People will figure out what to do or how to adjust, or maybe they swap one hero, right, and then your comp not stops working. So it's like those things take time for the dominant comp to figure out. But yeah, it's very hard. And against the best teams, they're so flexible. They're going to be able to play anything they want to counter your cheese, and then you're going to be stuck with like, we practiced this cheese for so long and it doesn't work anymore. Yeah. And now we're facing superior players on a comp we're not as good at. So that's the cost. It's like, yeah, which makes sense for bottom tier teams, but for Fuel, it's like, are they going to be able to accept we're a bottom tier team and we're going to shoot for the mid tier with cheeses, or are they going to want to like risk it all and say no, we can be the best? Which, to be fair, that's why most teams want it, because like, it's like a human thing. You want to keep playing to be the best. Like people don't play pro because they want to get 5th place.
Yeah, people don't want to just lock Zarya and double bubble their Reaper for 2 years straight. So hopefully Rush can get that under control. Before we get you out of here, give me one game next week that is a not miss game. You can't miss this. This is must watch.
There's actually, let me pull up the schedule. I remember there's like a few really good games next week.
Well, we won't go through the entire predictions.
Yeah. I'm gonna
stay tuned for
really
this.
Quick.
There's Gladiators Florida. There's Toronto Florida. There's Atlanta Gladiators.
Some haters.
Damn, that's rough for Florida. They got a back-to-back against good teams.
Yeah, and they end one day and they start the next day too. That's
yeah. Honestly, this is like everyone knows these are like okay, Glads, Florida, Toronto, Florida. Like people are gonna catch these games. You know what I mean? Those are like, if you watch Overwatch League and you want to watch the best teams play, you're gonna catch those games.
Yep.
The games I am excited to watch, I want to see Washington Justice versus Boston Uprising and Vancouver Titans against Boston Uprising. Especially Washington Justice, actually. I think Washington Justice against Boston, that's like my match of the week. I think you would look at Boston's roster and call them stronger, but I like Justice on this game. I might even pred Justice. I might even, I might do that.
How much?
Because I think Boston have showed weakness to me.
Agreed.
Even though they've won dominantly, I think they've shown weakness.
How much would Pri have to pay you to deliver that prep talk that you gave? Because on paper, they're definitely best players pop out, right?
Yeah. Well, part of it, I don't know. Like, I think Alpha Yi is very exciting on this Justice squad. Right. I think he is very exciting. I think he might be the best tracer in the server here, which I think counts for a lot in this meta.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess. Actually, I mean, wait, Justice supports are kind of weird, right? Okay, maybe I don't like this prediction anymore. I think I will still pred Boston, but I want to watch this match. I want like I'm excited.
Closer than people expect.
I'll be cheering for Washington Justice. You know what I mean? Like it's like it's an upsettable match. Boston's still the favorite, I will say, but it's an upsettable match. Vancouver probably less likely to upset Boston. And then Glads versus Atlanta, that's the opportunity. Well, honestly, both the Glads matches are great this week. It's like, did they beat Toronto because Toronto is bad, or did they beat Toronto because they're actually really good? I'm kind of favoring that maybe Glads has truly adapted and found their footing, because I think using Yaki Kevster and not using Kai anymore is the right decision. As much as Kai's an insanely good player, I think you just like Kevster also insane hit scan. If you really needed hit scan, he can hang, but you need your best Sombra Tracer in at all times. You need to just be ready for that to be the default in the match, and you need to be ready to swap back to it if you didn't start on it. Like, you need to be really ready for that. And so I think Yaki Kevster, very terrifying. And I think Gladys supports look really good. I think Lastro's been playing the main flex support role now, which I like. I mean, Bubble, I was surprised to see Bubble starting, honestly, on flex support, because it's like, not that I don't think he's bad, but I rate Lastro super high. I think he's a very smart player and very individually talented. And so, yeah, I want him on main support, or I want him on, starting support role.
Mm-hmm. All right.
And then with Bobble on the Kiriko, it looked pretty good, where he's able to like play aggro, and if it suits Gladdy's style of like hard aggroing all the time and like always putting the pressure on. So it'll be an interesting opportunity for Florida to show if they can like hang with that tempo. And if they can make their weird, I think Florida has kind of a little bit of a unique style, like trying to play hit scan a lot. And honestly, I'm not sure it's going to work for them. I think hit scan is a little bit inferior, but maybe Florida can just like stick to their guns. And so, yeah, stylistically, that'll be a fun one.
Oh, but a historical weird team. I think even last year, doing a lot of experimenting, double flexing a lot of the time. So
I don't hate, because I do think they're like making the sum greater than, or they're making the whole greater than the sum of its parts. That's what this Florida team is. Yep. There's good players on the team. Don't get me wrong, but they're like, I think they probably do have significantly less resources than some of the other top teams. And so the fact that they've been able to like put up results and the fact that people are calling them a top team is like definitely
that's a win.
Impressive. But the question is that sort of like plucky confidence in their strengths? Is it actually enough, or is like a strong team on the meta going to overwhelm them? But I don't think Gladiators is invincible this meta, so I think that'll be a fun one.
Yeah. All right, Jake. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Give the last little bit to plug anything. I know you're streaming and stuff, and obviously the league's coming back. So
yeah, just hey, watch Watchpoint. That's my main gig, and let me know what you think. Hit me up on Twitter with anything we're doing. We might be adding some. Well, we're definitely gonna be adding new stuff to the Watchpoint show. We always are. So yeah, just in general for people, like tweet at me with your Overwatch questions. I'm trying to interact more on Twitter and socials in general, and like I'm kind of curious. I want to learn about random people's perspective on the game. I want to learn about, like, I don't care if you're a gold player or you like play quick play mercy only. Like, I'm curious your perspective on the game, genuinely. Even though I might disagree with your perspective, like I want to talk about it. And so yeah, just tweet at me. Let me know. Let me know what your questions are. What's percolating in your mind? What kind of content do you want to see me make?
You are opening a very dangerous box with this community, Jake. I hope you realize.
That's fine. I don't care if your questions are stupid. I won't answer them. I might. Maybe I'll mock you a little bit, but don't be scared. Come out. I'll be nice. I'll play nice.
If they come and they drop the TCP, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, I give you full blast to flame the shit out of them. So thank you so much for coming on. I know you got to get out of here. Thank you again for stopping in and chatting with us. And congratulations on the beautiful start of the season. 295 coming next week. Stay tuned.